Hello, thanks for joining me for this week's Godly Play lesson. This week we're going to hear about another one of our holy people. Holy people are those who come so close to God and God comes so close to them that they can almost hear God's voice. They learn something special about how God wants us to live in the world. And maybe when we study it, we can learn that too. Today, we're going to learn the story of Mother Teresa. When she was born, her name was actually Agnes. She was born in a place called Macedonia in Europe. And when she was a little girl, about 8 years old, her father died. She was raised by her mother, who had a business sewing beautiful clothes out of expensive fabric. During those early years, Agnes learned to love God. She used to talk to God all the time. And sometimes she thought she could hear God talking back to her, telling her what to do with her life. And so, when she became an adult, she decided that she would go and live in a convent and become a nun. A convent is a place where nuns live, all together in the same house. They spend their days praying and helping people in different ways. Agnes moved to Ireland to join a convent, and there they changed her name to Teresa. She was very smart. She was good in school, and finally the nuns there decided that the best thing for her to do would be to move to India, where they had a school, and to teach the young children there. So she moved to India and was a teacher at the school, which she loved. But one day, she was coming home from the market, and she saw an old woman lying on the street, sick and dying. Teresa was so upset that no one seemed to care about her. So even though she was very small, she picked the woman up and helped carry her to a hospital. But when she got her there, they wouldn't treat her or care for her because the woman was so poor she couldn't pay for it. Teresa didn't think that was right. She thought everyone deserved to be loved and cared for, even if they couldn't afford to pay for it. So she tried to care for this woman. She cleaned her wounds and she gave her food. And she went back to her convent and she told the other nuns there about this woman. And they said, "Teresa, you can't care about that. There are so many poor people, we can't help them all. Your job is to teach in the school. Worry about that." But Teresa couldn't forget about it. She decided to leave where she was and to start going out into the street and caring for poor people. So she left her convent and she took off the black clothes that the nuns normally wore, and instead she got some of the cloth that local women there used for their outfits, and she used the skills that her mother taught her to make her own outfit out of white cloth with blue edges on it, so that she would look like the people there. She went out into the streets and she started caring for poor people. She would bring them food. She would try and heal their wounds. She would care for them in any way that she could. People found it so inspiring that others started to join her. Some people laughed. They said, "There are so many needy people, you can never care for them." But she would start caring for them one at a time. and say, but I can help this one, and I can help this one, and I can help this one. And soon other people joined her, and they would go out in the street with little bowls of water and strips of cloth so that they could clean people's wounds and help heal them. And they would bring them food and give them rest and treat them with the love that they thought God would show them. Soon there were so many people following Teresa and doing what she was teaching them that she went to the Pope and asked if she could start her own group of nuns. They were called the Missionaries of Charity. Charity is a word for a special type of love we show people who can never pay us back. That's what Teresa did. And soon there were so many people following her, like a family, that they started calling her Mother Teresa. But Mother Teresa learned that it wasn't just caring for the sick and the poor that was her life's call. She realized that people were sick and injured and poor because there was so much fighting. And she decided that part of her mission from God would be to bring about peace. And she used to say, you can't bring about peace just by talking to your friends. You have to talk to your enemies, and you have to get them to talk to each other. And so she started telling people about peace, about how that was God's way to live in the world. One time, she was visiting a hospital for children in Beirut in Lebanon, and war broke out outside the hospital. And she went out into the streets and told them to stop fighting long enough that they could get all of the children to safety so that none of them would be injured. She did so much work for peace that it's what she became known for, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize is a very important award given every year to someone who works for peace. And it comes with a lot of money, and they throw you a big banquet. But when Mother Teresa won, she used all the money to care for the poor, and she made them take all the food from the banquet out in the street and feed the hungry people who couldn't afford it. Because that was the sort of life that she lived. And when her life was done, and she died at a very old age, so many people were inspired by her that thousands of people came from around the world to India, to Calcutta, to her funeral, so that they could honor her, and they would always remember the things that she taught them about how to live God's way, about caring for those who are poor and needy and can never pay you back, and about working for peace so that other people don't get hurt. And that is why we remember Mother Teresa. I wonder what your favorite part of that story is. And I wonder what part you think is the most important of all. I wonder if there's anything we could leave out of her story and we would still have everything we needed. And I wonder if there's any part of her story that sounds like something in your own story or someone that you know. What can we do today to learn from Mother Teresa about how to live the way God wants us to in the world? Thank you for joining me today for our Godly Play lesson. I'll put the pieces away In this story, we'll go back on our saint shelf, which is over here on my left, at the end of all the other Bible stories, because the saints came after all the Bible stories, but still teach us about how God wants us to live in the world. Thanks for joining me this week.